Ron, could you introduce yourself and tell us what your relationship is with the advisory committee?
My name is Ron Kester. I live on Gatineau in the Springs with my wife, and I am the co-chair of the advisory committee.
So how long have you lived here and what attracted you to Camarillo Springs?
And so we have lived here since 2016. What attracted us to it was just the feeling of the Springs, the community of the Springs. You know, it's an enclave all by itself up there. It's beautiful. It's a special place. You're surrounded by nature. You're on a golf course. You can walk. You can hike. You can wake up in the morning and hear the birds. It's just a very special place that you don't find, I think, anywhere else, especially in the Southern California area.
Who formed the advisory committee and when was it formed?
I think it was probably October, November of 2016. All of us read in the newspaper that the Camarillo Springs golf course had been sold. So we had one concern, and that concern was what was going to happen. A group of us got together. Originally, I think there were about 12 of us, got together and just started discussing how we get information. And the real question was, how could we have influence, get information, and how we could have influence on what was going to happen to the Camarillo Springs golf course. We wanted to assure the Camarillo Springs golf course stayed open.
Can you tell us who makes up the advisory committee?
First of all, the primary thing that we wanted to do was to identify all the stakeholders and make sure they were represented in the advisory committee. So we have unofficial representatives of all of the homeowners associations. There's 5 Springs homeowners associations, the courtyard, as well as the stakeholder is the men's golf club. So we have representatives of all of those that are part of the advisory committee.
What were some of the first actions taken by the advisory committee?
We formulated a plan just to go out and gather information and understand more and more about the process and where we could, as residents and as a community, have input into the plan. And that's really how it started. The first thing we did is we went to the city and found out what the process is, because we had no idea the difference between a developer and the owner and the relationship that they had in the development and all of that. So once we understood that, and the city was very good at explaining it to us, we realized that we needed to have a developer that was committed to working with the community. And the name of New Urban West kind of filtered to the top as a developer that one had some experience in this area, but more importantly was committed to community-based workshops and getting input from the community and working with the community to deliver something that enhanced the community as well as allowing them to develop. So that was of primary importance to us, to get a developer that, one, we trusted, and two, had a process that included community input.
Ron, tell us what the goals were of the advisory committee.
We had 5 goals initially when we first met. Obviously, in the first meeting, the goal was just how do we organize ourselves to make sure that we can have some say in what was happening with the Camarillo Golf Course and have a positive effect on it. But beyond that, we really wanted to, one, preserve Camarillo Springs golf as the highest goal and most immediate goal. Make sure that the golf course stayed a golf course. And then the second was we were concerned about our property values, to make sure that our property values were maintained, if not enhanced. Okay. Third was we were worried about protection. We wanted to protect our safety and protect our property's safety. And that was primarily from floods, because we're in a floodplain. Historically, this is a floodplain, and we have over 150 seniors in CCV that are in the floodplain. And so one of the primary objectives we had was how do we redo the drainage as part of redeveloping the golf course so that we protect them and, if possible, remove them from the floodplain. And New Urban West and Pace Engineering came up with a plan that will remove those 150 people through the floodplain. Now that's going to cost New Urban West almost $3.5 million that they would not normally have to spend, but New Urban West is wanting to respond to that for those residents, and then also make sure that the way of life for Camarillo Springs is kept. The nature trails, hiking, just the ambiance that we all love about Camarillo Springs, that flavor is kept.
So the advisory committee's been in existence for about 3 years. Can you kind of recap what you've accomplished in the last 3 years?
The name of the committee is Advisory and Communications. In the first year, we concentrated on communications, making sure that the residents had the information on what was happening, and then getting information back and input back from the residents to the developer on what it is that we wanted done with the area. One of the first things we did is we had a series of meetings. There were 7 of them that 150 residents attended. And in that, we identified issues. And some of those issues obviously were the flooding issue, were possible traffic, making sure we wanted to keep the golf course, those types of issues. And the suggestions that came out of that, which we conveyed to the developer, was we wanted a small footprint for the houses. We wanted the offsets from existing homeowners so that they weren't looking at homes right behind them, so that noise was offset, so that light was offset. We also wanted 55 and over for those same reasons, to minimize. Okay. So those we fed back to the developer and also fed to the city on what we wanted. And then supported that process through the city's hearing effort to make sure that what the developer was proposing was what the residents had suggested. Year 2, we started getting more specific input. So we developed 3 subcommittees, one for golf, one for open space and trails, and one for food and beverage. And we got interested residents on those to start focusing on what the community would like to see in those areas. We also started calling in experts in the golf area, experts in food and beverage to work with the subcommittees. We started working and monitoring the experts in flood control. So we started getting more and more specific information so we could get that information to the residents, so the residents would, 1, understand what was happening, but 2, would start getting correct and accurate information so that they could start addressing their issues and they could start feeling more confident about the project. And so on year 3, what we're doing now is we're starting to get more and more specific data. We've got the data in from flood and the flood study, and so we've presented that to the residents. We've gotten more information in on what might be done for golf, and we've gotten that to the residents in a series of meetings. We've had more detailed meetings of the subcommittees. So we've gone through this iterative process of getting more and more information, one, to the residents, so the residents can respond and react to it, and then making sure that information is fed back to the developer to make sure that the changes have been made. An excellent example of that was the flood and drainage. One of our goals was, is there any way for the floodplain to be changed so that we remove people from the floodplain?
So Ron, can you tell us what kind of a relationship and interaction you have with New Urban West?
Coming out of that first meeting that we talked about of the 150 residents, we established a concept. And New Urban West has really been just refining that concept, but keeping true to the concept itself, minimizing the amount of homes, maximizing the open space in golf, and improving all of the structure as well as solving the flooding issues. New Urban West has been extremely helpful and extremely committed to working with the community so it's a win-win relationship, so that they get a development that they can be proud of, and that so we have something that will enhance our neighborhood.
So Ron, tell us what we have to look forward to in the future.
The environmental impact report is going to be coming out in 4 or 5 months. So when we have that, we want to make sure the community has the chance to review it and the input that goes in there. So we're trying to make sure that all of that information is getting out to the community and being fed back to the city, the community's responses. What we've also realized is that Camarillo Springs Golf Course and the Camarillo Springs area that we're talking about is not just a local benefit, it's a community resource. And so we're beginning to expand our outreach to the community, going out and talking to more people in the community, because we consider them stakeholders also, on the benefit that the golf course and open space is to them, and starting to involve them in the process.
We will have more interviews from experts contributing to the redevelopment effort of Camarillo Springs.